Hi, good evening, everyone. Suren from Nykaa. Thank you for having here. I've been part of Nykaa for the last 2 years, and prior to that, for 20 years with Vodafone Group, 16 years in India, and then 4 years I was heading the global capability centers. And it's really fun to create a new age company, and I'm here to learn quite a bit from this L&D forum. Thank you.
Hi, this is Sabharatnam. I work for Titan. Titan, in fact, was my fifth company, and I had roughly about 4.5 years of experience before joining Titan. This is my 23rd year in Titan, and I have worked across sales, retail, marketing, and L&D functions in the organization. That's how my journey has been.
Hi, I'm Pooja. I'm a part of House of Anita Dongre. I started my retail journey in 2006 and ever since have been a fan of retail. Before this, I have been with Future Group largely as far as my work ex goes. I have also tried a short stint at entrepreneurship. So again in retail though. So yeah, that's been me. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kuljit. Born and brought up in Mumbai. In fact, I stay next door. I'm computer science graduate. Passed out in the year when .com bust happened. So I had pretty much no job on hand, and I was fortunate that I started working for a startup. I went to a startup and said, I don't need any salary, just give me a job. And I think I fell in love with the entire concept of startup. And this was very early on when we didn't had this buzz around funding and all of that stuff. So worked for the company in India, then UK, then US. 2006, I had this India calling, and I came back to India in 2006 to do my MBA. After that, I thought I'll work for a large organization, so I joined a consulting firm. And I think within 2 months, I realized that I'm not the right fit there. After that, I did a couple of gigs with startups like ClearTrip. And in 2011, I started my entrepreneurship journey. I used to always tell people that I'm very passionate about two things. One was teaching and learning, and second was tech. I used to be a visiting faculty at SP Chain. So always my heart was I'll do something in the learning in tech space. So in 2011, me and my other co-founders, we were both batchmates in ISB. We used to stay together. And in the late night parties, late night discussion, we used to say, we'll start a company someday. And in 2011, we started the company. This was not Disprz. We ran that company for about 5 years. This was in the edtech space, selling to schools. We couldn't scale that company. We knew that we can't create a very large organization using that company. So we sold that company in the year 2016 and Disprz was born. This is a more successful startup. And I'll talk to you individually about what the company does later on. That's it. That's a quick background about me.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Saurabh Deshpande. I also had a very similar journey. I started off my journey, passed out doing MBA marketing. Because of the .com bust, I didn't get job in finance. So I ended up taking marketing, but I did land up in banking, worked with good brands like ICICI, HSBC, Royal Bank of Scotland. And from there, I joined a edtech company so that, so to say, EduComp was the first one to bring in smart school concept to India. And that is where I realized that sales is not my cup of tea. I was enjoying the teaching and training part, which we used to do with teachers and trainers. So I shifted within EduComp to the teaching and training. And from there, joined Dale Carnegie. I was very fortunate to have a stint right from a talent trainer up to a journey of being certified on all formats and being a master trainer at Dale Carnegie. Then came to the other side, and I think Shopper Stop was one of the best things that happened, because retail, I believe, is a lifestyle industry, and whenever anything changes, it immediately hits you. So it's been a wonderful journey at Shoppers with a lot of ups and downs. Learned a lot. So good to be amongst all of you, the fraternity. Looking forward to learn. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Smitha Satyanarayan, part of Marks and Spencer. Over 2 decades of experience, started with hospitality. I think it's a great foundation to have a career, to kind of really, it's a very humbling experience to start off in hospitality. Moved on to financial services, worked with brands like Kotak Life Insurance and Standard Chartered Bank. During this time, they said, since you're in training, it would be fantastic if you did a sales stint. That's when you will know. And then I did dabble with sales. Did all right, but did not enjoy it one bit. But so then moved back into learning. And 2006 seems to be like a common year for many people here. 2006 is when 2006 is when I got married. 2007 is when I joined Walmart. And that's where my career in retail kind of really started. So was there for almost a decade. So literally saw the organization get set up, grow, and then demerge. And then finally, I think it's an end of an era over there from that standpoint. But kind of saw that whole journey. And then Marks and Spencer happened. So I think like everybody here, I think once you get into retail, it just is something that's just very exciting. So loving it even now. I take care of learning and development, talent, internal comms, and very recently sustainability. So that's where I think my own learning curve is I'm just learning every little thing over there. So it's really exciting.
Thank you, Smitha. Thank you, everyone. And it's been an honor here to be a part of this group of experienced people. My journey started with Oberoi Hotels. I am Manisha Dash, and I head the retail training for Puma India now. I started my career in 2002 in operations in Oberoi's, and post that I did my master's. I came back to Oberoi's because I loved the brand and the way they have that culture of customer first. And that is something that I have learned, and it has been there with me since then, right? So post that, I got fascinated with retail, and that's when Puma happened. So 2009 onwards, I'm there in Puma. And it's, again, a wonderful journey. So my loyalty to the brand is really high. So that's about me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Priya Thakur Singh. I guess I'm the early, I wouldn't say I'm possibly the late bloomer in this space, possibly. This is just 6 months into retail. This is my first stint in QSR. I joined Tim Hortons as head of HR and learning and development. Just before this, I just gave a little bit brief about Tim Hortons. Possibly we are branding wherever we go. So that was the entire spiel on Tim Hortons before we started this stint. Before this, I was with an agri-tech organization called as Innoterra. I was the group head of HR for them, managing about 5 companies in different space, from agriculture to milk to fertilizers, etc. Before that, I was with Marriott. That was a beautiful stint in hospitality. I spent about 4 years there. One of the reasons for me to really join hotels was to understand what this hospitality beast is all about, what people are talking about. But with that, I got a reality check with Union. And again, that was beautiful. But again, I think I call that one of the best stint I ever had in my career. Before that, I was part of a startup again. I was in BFSI. I was one of the early joiners in Cigna TTK, now called as Cigna Manipal. So I joined them when they were 40. When I left them, they were 2,000. So that's the growth I saw. Before that, I was with Pidilite for a little bit, and then a larger stint with SR. I was managing international HR about 26 countries. So I'm the recent one in the retail. I hope the retail bug really bites me and I stay here longer. But I guess this is one of the stint where I love going to work. And this is very rarity people say that I love going to work. I really look forward to going to my office. I really look forward to doing the work I do. I think that's the culture one would want to establish in their organization. And I'm grateful to the team I work with that they make me and everybody else feel that. So yeah, hi everybody, and look forward to exchanging notes here.
Happy to know that there are so many people who are so passionate about retail over here. So I think we'll have a very good conversation. I just wanted to set the context before we go a little bit deeper. I wanted to pick up around two specific dimensions. The first one is, of course, the COVID and the post-pandemic world. We knew that business models got changed overnight. Leaders like you had to actually get your workforce ready, moving fully from an offline mode to an online mode. I know things are getting back to normal, but every time I speak to the leader, they say the base or the needle has shifted. So one aspect we want to explore about the journey during the COVID period and the post-pandemic world, and understand how your talent strategy has evolved. That's one piece. The second part is around, I was reading a McKinsey article which talks about 15% of the workforce is going to have to change their job roles. The skills of today and the skills of future are going to be very, very different. And that's very, very interesting, specifically when we talk about retail workforce, because the retail workforce is very large, is extremely distributed, and it has its own kind of challenges like union. So the other aspect I want to go a little more deeper is about how are you thinking about the skilling journey? And that specific article about McKinsey also goes a little bit deeper and says close to about 80 to 90% of the leadership believe that they are not prepared for the change in the skills that are expected, and 50% said that we are not prepared for it. So keeping these two dimensions, one is around the COVID and the post-COVID world, that's one dimension. And the second dimension is about the whole thing about automation, AI is going to disrupt the job roles, the skills. We want to understand more from leaders like you, how are you preparing the organization and the employees for these two big changes? So keeping that context in mind, I want to probably start with the first question. And Suren, since you are there and you started with the introduction, we can start with you. Would love to understand, when how prepared was your organization? Of course, no one was prepared, but how quickly did you get ready on the entire piece on getting your workforce ready and skilled? How did you see the needle shift now when we are at a stage where things are getting back to normal? And what are the efficiencies you achieved during that period, which has stayed back within the organization? Would love to understand that part of the journey.
Thank you, Kuljit. It's a fantastic question, but a very long question as well. I must say that I had the joy of learnings in two different setups. For part of the time when COVID was there, I was in a global role looking after a very different industry, which is IT, ITS, and not retail. And in multi-country to see how different country and different cultures were coping with that. And then was, of course, in the retail side of it. So to answer your first question, how ready the organization was? Absolutely no. Nobody was ready. And so were we not. And particularly being an early stage organization where, early stage organization and entrepreneurial organization, the ambition is far bigger than resources. And so you almost get ready just in time, Japanese technique way. So I think likewise, we got ready, almost on the run. So you were on the Formula 1 race. You were wanting the business model to stay as a new age, early stage company. At the same time, you wanted to cater to the customer needs. So I think the learning which we had was that this young workforce, which many times societal labeling can be that young are not very responsible. My personal experience was that a very different dimension of young workforce acting in a very, very responsible way, willing to walk that extra mile to cater to the customer need, bring out the out-of-box innovation thinking. One of the innovations, how the retail ended up doing hyper-local, and they almost became like mini distribution centers, because a lot of the personal care and essential items we could serve to the customer through that part of the network. I think happened beautifully, and I think I can go on and on praise how people were doing, how our back office teams were doing, and not in one office but all distributed in hundreds of offices as people were operating from where they were operating from. But more importantly, I think as that phase was going on, I also think it propelled the agenda on knowledge building and skilling as well, because you were using parts of the time to keep people engaged through very quick turnaround of digital solutions to give them content and for them to learn and for them to feel more engaged, because it was a difficult time. So I think my experience would be very high innovation, very high responsibility from young workforce, flexibility to quickly move from the traditional way of learning to new way of learning and then being engaged into that were some of the themes I personally felt very, I think, very inspired with. And that's what I would say. With respect, and I think as a company, we took a call at Nykaa that we would not let these difficult times to make difficult decisions for employees to let them go. So we were hearing a lot of stuff happening in the marketplaces because businesses came under risk. I think we took the decision that we would want to stand by our people. And that went a long way, even when this thing started coming to normalcy in terms of people even giving more extra, walking the extra mile. So I think from efficiency, during that time when businesses were challenged to keep their bottom line or top line up, I think we were able to do good. So it wasn't a question of efficiencies, but getting more out of the same. I think that's what happened. And I think what COVID has done is when you came back to normalcy at the beginning of this year, the beginning of 2022, first quarter, I think those new tables identified as ways of working, as new ways of learning, continuing the thrust of how you want to use the combination of digital and personal, has made a new normal. So I think from a workplace point of view, I think the world is still going through a experiment. I don't think anybody knows whether it is hybrid is the best way or totally in office is the best way or totally remote is the best way. I think still it is an experiment going on, and people will find in their own context the right, I would say, trajectory that what works for them. But in terms of new data points, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of how productive people can be, how efficient it can be, how learning can be, I think all have got redefined. I think maybe I'll have some others comment on that as well.
Sure. So, you talked about innovation, you talked about responsibility and agility. So do you see in the post-COVID world, those things are still status quo, or you've gone back to the way of working before COVID?
So I think we continue to grow. I think, in fact, between post-COVID to now, just to give you statistics, that we were, let's say, 75 stores until we opened back. Now, as I speak, we are almost touching double. So I think the pace of growth has been so fantastic that I think I don't even think we've discussed this. Are we talking the what should I say, creativity we were talking then, or we were talking the pace we were talking then? I think it just has become
really fast. Things are moving fast. Got it. So let's go one level deeper. Is we know that the skills that were required in the offline mode that we were working pre-COVID and the skills that are required today are very, very different. So maybe Sabha, I would like to understand from you. Can you talk a little bit about in the new world, how do you see the skills have evolved? And in your current workforce, because Titan is huge, what are the skills that you are imparting to your workforce which are more relevant today?
So the world has changed completely. I must tell you that, because there has been a huge shift in the way consumers look at you. If you look at pre-pandemic, I think it was slowly shifting, and we had to make those changes quite rapidly. In fact, we discovered virtual training ourselves, because we were not accustomed to training people virtually. And it was important for us to also learn that very fast because there were so many tools that we had to bring in. You know, how do you engage with people when you're talking to them virtually? One is, of course, the challenge of bandwidth and connectivity issues and all that. And then getting people to talk to you, you know, when you're not seeing them directly. So that was a challenge. But one thing was good, you know, because the culture that we come from is very people-centric. And that really helped us because when pandemic hit, the first thing that we did was we reached out to our associates, we extended credit, and we told them that nobody should be deprived of the money or salaries that they should get. And then, of course, we felt that, you know, like us, even our customers will be in a very depressing mood. So let us enhance their mood. And we engaged with the retail workforce to exhibit their talent online, you know. And most of the retail folks were very happy doing that because that was something that was never explored. And they were very happy. And we discovered so many beautiful talent, you know, coming from all across the country. And customers still talk about that, you know. Right. So we engaged with them through Facebook, and they were on Facebook Live. So that was very interesting. And all these things actually enhanced the mood of the retail force to adapt to many of the changes that we are trying to bring. So one, of course, you know, the online shift that I spoke about. And Omni is also becoming more and more bigger. We saw radical shifts in the way we approached customers because customers were not coming to you. You had to go to the customers, right? So in a way, we had to create avenues to reach out to customers. The phone calling was an easy option. So that was happening. But are you doing it properly? So there is a need for training there. Then, you know, creating a video zone inside the store so that when customers call you, you know, you are able to relate to their need through a video call. And I must tell you, this was a complete new, you know, task which was embarked on us. We did not crack it in the first place. Most of our guys did not even know how to talk, you know, over a call. It was not an easy thing because when you are in front of me, I can talk to you in a certain way. I have a body language. I can, you know, relate to what you're trying to say. I have an eye contact. But when I'm doing it on a video call, you know, it is so much more important for me to stay connected and also relate to what that person is trying to see. So we quickly realized that, you know, the normal things that people do without resources will not work. So we had to enable them, you know, with the right kind of resources. So we got in a tab instead of a phone for better visibility. We also said that, okay, let us create a zone inside the store, you know, which has more lighting and the customer can see the product very nicely. And the people who will engage, you know, they need to be storytellers. So we got them to learn about, you know, telling stories, and that was a new skill that we imparted. And slowly what we discovered was that while those things are on, it's also important to look at newer roles which were coming in. So we discovered lead management as a new role. And here again, you know, people who were coming online, you had to engage with them. So say, for example, if Pooja is looking for jewelry, I know that she is looking for jewelry online. So somebody will speak to Pooja and tell her that I saw you browsing. Would you like to see that jewelry piece, you know, which is next to your house? And then Pooja happens to visit the store. That lead is passed on to the store saying that Pooja is going to visit you. And you have to feed in that data into the CRM. Now that is a task, okay? People have to feed in that data and they have to tell whether they were able to close the sale with Pooja or what did they do to upsell. So that piece has to be mentioned there. Now that was not done before. This was something newly discovered by the store teams. Here again, there was a few challenges, and we had recently embarked on the new Salesforce CRM. One, of course, understanding the CRM itself is a huge challenge for the team. And then you are asking them to fill in this on a regular basis. So that was another ask which was coming for the retail force. Thereafter, we said that let's make the most of all the stores that we have. So a customer is very important. So if he's asking for jewelry, can I look at him? And she's also wearing glasses. So when did you get your eyes checked? Can you go to an eye plus store? Yeah. So just imagine, I am good at selling jewelry. Now I have to ask the customer.
Single view of a customer.
Yeah. I have to do, and we ran an initiative called Sabka Dam.
You also need to ensure the data is spread across the organization so that different channel people can see the data at any point.
Correct.
So what's very interesting is you talked about digital skills, you talked about new ways of communication, you talked about changing customer behavior, and what was very impressive for me, for new roles.
Yeah.
Now I want to go back to what Surendra said, the kind of workforce you have, and maybe anyone can pick up this question. You said Gen Z, and the population would be quite spread. Some of them would be youngsters, some of them could be people like me who are at their 40s. How difficult was it? And one is about digital skills. How do you change the mindset? Maybe Smitha, you can talk a little bit about, rather than just giving a very, very functional skill, what we've noticed is trying to change the mindset of the person is extremely difficult. So how would you do something like that?
I wish I had the perfect answer to say how do you change mindsets. But I think till about some time ago, we only spoke of competencies. And we've suddenly all transitioned to learning about skills. And I think that kind of is where the answer is inherently. Because we ourselves don't know what competencies are going to come up in the near future. And that's where I think as an organization, even at Marks & Spencer, we also moved away from what we used to have as competencies into something that, there are various buzzwords around skills right now, which is called meta skills or power skills or whatever you kind of want to call it. And what that primarily says is if I'm going to focus on something like communication. So under that, how are you going to communicate? There are so many things that are evolving on such a dynamic basis that if you learn that power skill, I can maybe teach you many more functional skills. So I think that's how it's shifting. The biggest shift from a mindset standpoint, although we've all, again, I'm sure lots of us have been talking about an entrepreneurial or a growth mindset for some time. But I think right now what stood out even for us at Marks & Spencer was having a digital mindset. And I think that's kind of where we are saying suddenly using a video phone, suddenly expecting our store guys to say, if you don't find the product here, go to our website. And for them, it's almost like, how can I send this customer to the website? I'm going to lose my sale. But however, understanding that customer centricity that comes along with it to say, how can I sell through all my channels? It doesn't matter. And I think it came across through all realms, not necessarily on the customer front, but even in their own life, suddenly understanding how am I going to learn online? How am I going to, for us in retail, I think some of us already touched on it. It was a clear no, even 6 months before that, to say online kare, and it's like, ho hi nahi sakta, meeting kaise kar sakte online. So I think it just shifted overnight for everybody. And I think the way that the organization moved with agility, and I think that's the question you were asking him to say, what has stayed on? Because I think nobody had a chance. We were able to say, okay, do we want to switch to Teams? Suddenly there were corners everywhere in the office where Teams was getting set up on everybody's laptop. Everybody knew what to move from the next day. All information were getting into shared drives. We were so quick and agile in terms of saying system se sabke liye access versus individual access to everybody's access. And I think everybody saw that happen. And then there's been no turning back to say now, if my laptop shuts down, you still got all your data. So I think we've all evolved from that point. So I think coming back to the mindset, I think it's the little things. When conferences started to happen in a hybrid way, we used videos even for leadership messages. How did we start to communicate more frequently? Where we had biannual conferences, it became more monthly. We had video messages from the MD going on. We had QR codes for these video messages for them, for our frontliners to really view. So that digital mindset is not necessarily going as a skill, but to say that. And luckily for us, I think for this generation, everything is digital. So we've not necessarily faced too much issues from a generation standpoint that you spoke of. From an age standpoint, I think we don't have too many people that are beyond or the age group as us, probably. But I think it just, even for us, I think everything is so easy, it's so intuitive. In fact, it's challenged us as HR to say that if people are used to such good platforms that are so intuitive, how do we bring in platforms that are not looking and feeling archaic? So, yeah, so I think.
Just to add on to her point and possibly to add on what Sabha and Surendra mentioned, at any given point in time, every organization has 3 to 4 generations working for them, right? A large chunk is Gen Z and millennials. A new word which got introduced to me was zillennial yesterday.
What is it called?
Zillennial. Apparently a nephew of mine introduced, he's like, I'm too old for this. He said, no, you're a zillennial. Zillennial, because it's a mix of millennial and Gen Z. So I quite like that, and I'm going to use that. On the hindsight, if you really sit back and think of past, before COVID, we all were on digital platforms, right? We all were on digital platforms. Possibly for being there to have it as an employer of choice, that we are technology savvy, we are digitization is the thing which we're looking at. But the attention we all paid for it was just 1%. Or possibly 5, and a max of an organization which is huge as the multinationals. We were forced to use technology, and we were forced to make sure that technology was consumable for all of these generations. So the adaptation for a Gen Z was much easier than somebody like a 40-year-old, 45-year-old, 50-year-old. I think one of the warriors, which we miss adding in COVID warriors, the IT guys. They made sure that they were all available and teaching and giving on-ground, on-call training to all of those 2 generations which didn't even know the usage of Gmail beyond 1%, right? So, coming back to the training piece, there was this ratio which we always talk in training, 70-20-10. 10% in class, 20% by coaching and mentoring, and 70% on OJT. During the COVID time, the one thing which people missed was the 70%. Because the maximum learning one could have was on that 70%. In COVID, the digitization became much easier because people were missing that 70%. And the coaching and mentoring was still happening. The boss called every morning. 10% of training happened because HR and L&D built in training programs twice in a week. So that 30% was taken care. 70% kahan jayenge?
So 70-20-10 change hua hai post-COVID world?
Absolutely.
What's the new ratio? Can we go back to a research from says that 70-20-10 is not applicable today?
So right now, as we say, do we go back to the old way of training and development? No, we can't. Yeah. Because in the time we are in, the COVID which happened has also changed the mindset of the people.
And that's the reason I wanted to ask the question, is that mindset shift also happened?
Absolutely. In the time of great resignation, the time where we are sitting in, where the talent is a war, upscaling, rescaling, multi-skilling, if it is not accompanied by emotional wellness or a physical wellness or a financial wellness, is not appreciated. While expectation from the organization is consumer ke liye kya karenge, upskilling, side skilling, upselling, side selling, kaise karenge. All of that is great. But at the same time, that person who's on the job is also going through crisis. How do we deal with that? So that blur line between an L&D, HR, talent management was there. right?
Got it. Makes sense.
So that is where all of us sitting on the panel, if we have to figure out what the ratio is, we're still figuring out, because we're still dealing with the fact
As
that
far as that ratio has changed, means things have changed.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
One more thing I would love from your side also just to understand. You talked about, people are also interested on learning skills that they believe will add value to their career. So, someone said about skills to deploy, skill for readiness, and skill for choice. What I would love to understand from you is how do you calibrate within the organization which is 3,000, 4,000 employees? It's a nightmare for me to know, okay, I have a workforce of 3,000, which is about 200 roles. These are the skills required. As the CEO of the company, can I look at the skill heat map and understand which are the areas where there are gaps? Because if you don't know the gaps, you don't know where to start from. So would love to understand from this panelist, how do you actually calibrate where the gaps are within the organization?
Okay, so talking about the skill map, I think skill mapping itself has changed post-COVID, because in an era of where we're talking about the new way to the new hiring is the way to retain, right? So if you retain your employees, you don't need to hire anymore with the dearth of talent. Now, when you talk about upskilling or reskilling, it's about the kind of interest that the individual has. So, for example, we're running assessment centers, and where we have identified a pool of high potentials, right? Now, to reskill them or upskill them, it's very important to understand what they are interested in. It's not about only what the organization needs. So, for example, the organization may need another 40 store managers in the coming 6 months. But out of the pool of 100 people who are selected, 5 want to be a part of visual merchandising. The other 4 want to be a part of merchandising, right? Or someone wants to come as a part of HR or training. So I think what we have done is we have combined the two and then made separate buckets as to where this person will go, and the mentors appointed for these high potentials are the HODs of those departments. So, for example, if you are a fashion consultant today, but you see yourself as a visual merchandiser for your region tomorrow, then I help you to be groomed on that line. So it's not that the company needs 40 people, so I ensure that all the 40 are, made store managers. It doesn't. And these days, I think the people are also the young generation is very open about it. They are not scared to say that mere ko ye nahi karne ka hai. Okay, so they will not say, no, I'm getting a chance, let me do it. No, sorry, I am not interested in this, so I will not do this. And in fact, that's great. Also, post-pandemic, I think the empathy quotient is very high, which wasn't earlier, right? So that also adds on to skill mapping, where you want to consider what the person wants to do, where he or she comes from. So for example, currently we have someone who will be recently going on her maternity leave, who's also one of our high potentials. Doesn't matter, right? Because all the training can happen digitally. So why should someone lose out just because they're creating something beautiful, right? So I think those biases have also gone off post-pandemic, and people are more inclusive, more receptive to new ideas. I think leadership wants to look beyond hiring. They want to look at retaining. They want to look at upskilling. So I think the canvas is huge, and all of us can.
Organization wants, only what organization wants, but it's also related to what a person wants. So we'll go a little bit more deeper on that, because I think that's a huge piece of the impact of the talent strategy, both from an organization perspective, from a talent pool perspective, and similarly for an employee's aspiration perspective. But another point which I want to touch upon, and maybe Suren, you can help me over here, is at least on the retail side, with some of the customers that we work with, this is always this fight about push versus pull. And in our head, at least in my head, I think about push is knowledge-driven learning. Key, I want people to know about products. We work with a large dealership. They launch a new car. What are the benefits of the car vis-a-vis a competition? Vis-a-vis the skilling, which is basically what you said. Either it could be for the mobility or it could be for the business. So Suren, what I want to understand from you is from your organization perspective. Talk to us about when you talk about push learning, how are you thinking about how is the pull learning? And is there a way where you quantify that, probably the learning which is more pulled, the adoption or the completion ratio is higher vis-a-vis what you're trying to do, which you're trying to push to the people. So love to understand your thought over it.
Thank you so much. So my name is Saurabh. It's okay. You need not be. But you need not be. But and that's the shift that has happened, I guess. Where you want to connect with people, you want to know their personal side also. I think if you look at the entire pandemic thing, we've gone through 3 stages. One where it hit, and suddenly the stores are vacant, so you don't know what to do now. Then there is a trough where you are trying to connect with them over through technology. You're trying to connect with customers, employees using technology. And then when it came up, there is a vengeance shopping happening where everybody is back and wanting to do everything. So if you see agility or adaptability, I think these 2-3 years have forced us to be more agile, adaptable. No doubt it's become one of the buzzwords of the organization, to be agile, to be adaptable. So that's one. Second, the shift that has also happened is, and I resonate with all of you, we've gone through the same journey. I think there are 2 skills which I feel would run parallelly. One is being efficient at technology and being empathetic at people. And that's the balance probably we are looking at, where, yes, you need to learn technology, but at the same time, can you connect with people? Because I know somebody sitting in Bangalore, somebody just delivered PBA, and yes, I need to retain all these things. I need to be connecting with them and get the things done. That's the second shift that is happening. Third, we are looking at great resignations we are talking about. But just look at the pressure that it has on the employees as well. When I'm getting up and I'm getting to see the news that so many people have been laid off, now this organization is asking them to leave. Am I equipped enough? And these 3 things the organization needs to take care of. So yes, if you keep on pushing the content, that's not going to happen, because that was the time where you had a competency framework where organization said, this is the competency you need to learn. We want you to do this. I think the shift that has happened is when you're doing the same thing, you are doing the same business again and again, you're looking at being efficient at it. So industrial revolution, how quickly can you get this same thing done? When we went into technology, during those .com bust and the technology boom and all, I think the focus shifted then on being proficient. So the shift happened at knowledge level. Today probably, and for the better rhyme of word I'm using, today's workforce is thinking, am I sufficient enough? What if tomorrow this technology does not work? What if tomorrow this competency is no longer required? Would I be laid off? And so they are wanting desperately to be, updated all the time, and they just look upon, oh, data science, let me learn that. Oh, marketing, digital marketing, let me learn that. We are doing it, we are trying to do. I wouldn't say we have still got that matrix right, but we are looking at 4 ways of building this. One, what my organization want. Second, what my job requires. Third is what is the market demanding, what are my peers learning, because I need to be competitive, I need to be ahead. And fourth is what do I aspire to do. And that is the combination we are trying to do. Right now, this is happening manually. I'm sure there are...
Very good point. Sorry, I'm cutting you, but
no.
Listen, so, what you said is a framework.
Yes.
And I want to ask all the people over here, including you, Saurabh, these are great concepts, but how do you make them scalable using technology?
Correct.
So would love to understand if you're using any technology on achieving what you said, identifying about what the skills are required at an organization level, from a role perspective, from an individual perspective. Just Can anyone talk about any technology in your organization? Manisha, you have not spoken.
So I would like to add on one of the things, and I differ a little here, wherein a push strategy can be converted into a pull strategy as well. How are you strategizing it? How are you communicating about that push strategy, right? And we have seen in our organization where we have included the in-store training processes, which we always had to push. We included that into our R&R format, right? How are you recognizing and rewarding those people who are actually doing this? So incentivizing people to do something, right? So that automatically pushes. That is one. The second thing is, so we have all our e-learning modules on Workday platform, and we have included that into our evaluation process. And on an yearly basis, we reward and recognize these people. So that is one. The second aspect that we have done is using tools like Kahoot and Mentimeter, right? Which are really good tools to engage team members. We have, being a sports brand, we have this yearly championship, which is based on a format of IPL. Right? So where the area managers, they select their own team members, and those teams, then they play a Puma Quiz Championship League, right? And it all happens digitally. It all happens on Kahoot, right? And that gives us a real-time picture as to where people are, and then identify those skill gaps, right? So that is
more than the content, the experience of that
experience
content matters much higher.
Absolutely.
Yes. Since we're talking about the content, we would love to understand what works within the organization.
That's a very good point. I think the push-pull strategy absolutely and totally depends upon the kind of content we create. The more boring, the more push. So we have been creating some content which is, at least for HOAD, we create very, very Bollywood-based content. And for our product trainings and things like that, we had KBPC, like a spoof of KBC. So it was Kaun Banega Product Champ. Then we had Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar, which was yet another, kind of training that we rolled out. When we had to push content related to sustainability, we wanted to speak about the initiative that HOAD had started called Recognize. And we didn't know how to get it through to the people who are, 10th pass, 12th pass. So we actually came up with comic strip-like communication with Sholay and Basanti and Viru and, Gabbar. And that is how we used to push the content on the app, and the kind of response that we received. The acceptance level was higher. The understanding was much, much better. Because if you send them a concept note, they're going to be like, this is too much English, sorry, I don't understand this, right? And you can't even translate your sustainability piece in Hindi or Marathi to actually, to give out the right essence. So that's what we do. We make the content very interesting.
And when they launched the XUV, this thing, they actually launched a series of web series. So someone in my team said, Kuljit, you just need to go and watch it because it's a very innovative format. And we are talking about 2 years back. And when I watched the first episode, it was so hilarious that I had to actually watch the entire series of 5. So it goes back to what you said, it's not about push or pull. It's if you can make that experience really, really good, everything can actually become pull.
I'll just add one bit to this. We explored one tool, and this was from a Swiss vendor. And this tool actually helps you to engage in a classroom in a more productive manner. So say, for example, I'm presenting something on the screen, and typically what happens, some people are on the phone, some people are not so attentive, and then you have to tell them, put the phone aside. If you talk, it becomes like a disturbance. So for this, tool to be used, we tell them that you can use your phones. and you can engage. So all that you need to do is to scan the QR code and then have the presentation on your phone, right? And the moment the presentation is on the phone, you tend to be more attentive to what is being said. And then there is a quiz, that the tool actually gives you based on the slide. And if you are not attentive, then you lose your leadership position. Your leadership position is visible on the screen, and there is a prize at the end of the day, after every classroom session. Now this is an evolved, So this is something that we have adopted now, and it's very new to us. In addition to the two tools that you mentioned, we have been actively using the Miro board. I don't know how many of you have used Miro board. So it's a very nice, yeah. So this is a collaborative board. Everybody can add, and you can also learn whatever has been taught. It is like preserving your notes and then referring to those notes whenever you want. So that is what Miro board does. We have also been using Loom, and these Loom videos are very, very nice. And this has actually helped the workforce to independently make videos and send. So what it does is, when you're presenting something, you can talk, right? And you talk in your language that you are comfortable with. And then, your video is visible and the presentation is going on. And whatever you are capable of delivering, is visible there. So we have used that for our regular assessments that we do. So like what she said, IPL, we have something called impressions that we run. And for that, we do periodic assessments. And you did mention that 3,000, 4,000 people, how do you learn gaps, etc. See, for these people, it's important to understand what they can do and how they can do, right? So if you can really figure out that magic, then you don't need to get into that need gap and all that. Because we have used theater, we have used role plays, we have used case studies, and storytelling, is something that works very well for this audience. So how do you tell those stories in the right manner is also very, very important. If that is done, then most of what you want to achieve is definitely happening for you. We have created pipeline of trainers inside the stores. Now they are called learning champions, and I have more than 1,000 learning champions. In fact, 1,165 learning champions in my jewelry outlets. Now these guys are extended hands and legs for me. I train these guys, and these guys train the store teams. And now because of this level, they are closer to becoming a store manager faster than the rest of the people. So that also has happened during this period only.
Something that is coming in my mind is specifically on the trainer, nothing related to this, but I have a client because this industry is grappling with a lot of attrition. So for them, the problem statement was very simple. How can you onboard my workforce, which takes 60 days, can you bring it down to 30 days? So we worked with them and we were able to bring down the 60 day to about 35, 40 days, and they are able to track that on data. But I love the CEO's idea. His concept was, I don't want to stop at only improving the productivity of the team. I have 14 recruiters. I also want to understand who are these recruiters who are getting people who are actually becoming productive faster. So he actually changed the entire incentive structure of his recruiters. All the 14 recruiters, he's able to say, this recruiter onboarded 300 people, but 60% of the people are onboarded faster. So, those are the kind of innovations using data.
So let me just add to that. What we had done is, when you look at the store manager, the responsibility of the store manager, of course, is to, interview and get people for his team. But what we said is, can we enable him to retain people? And we did the intervention for all the people, and they became enablers instead of just store managers. And we said that, the responsibility of hiring and ensuring that they are staying in your store lies with you. And Yeah. So it becomes very interesting, when you give responsibilities to people and when you say that this is what we expect. And instead of the store manager, complaining about he's not working or she's not good, he has to make them better, right? So, yeah. Correct. Correct.
They love taking responsibility. So the more responsibility you give, the better it is. So then, since you have mic, I also want to touch upon ROI because we have about another 5 minutes and then we'll open for other people to ask questions.
Sure.
But we have not touched the elephant in the room. Is the return on investment, the impact of all the investment that the leadership is doing. So let me talk. Would love to hear from you. When you go to the management and present, you gave me X learning dollars. This is the impact that I've created. What is the data you present in the management?
Can I take a minute to wrap the earlier conversation? I think as I was hearing to the thoughts and what was going on in my mind was that I think one of the things which COVID has done, it was always required, but I think it has propelled the case for a 360-degree outlook to this whole agenda about skilling. And what I have noticed a change is that it starts, right from the goals you set. You want learning and skilling to be part of that goal. You want to incentivize it. So you build it in your incentive plans that, okay, now it could be through various tests and mechanisms that how people are scoring and therefore they should get incentivized if they are constantly skilling themselves on what you want them to be skilled. So, and then you're also recognizing, somebody said that how do you recognize people who are constantly skilling themselves because you want them to be your ambassadors of creating a learning environment in the organization and that they are constantly on top. And the other day we were having a chat and when we spoke about careers, building careers, I think this new age generation is not wanting time-bound careers. They want careers like far more instantly than all of us in HR fraternity or managers are competent to even create that space of giving careers. We can't. So it's careers. And, to the earlier point, one of the success stories of Nykaa as an organization has been 3 pillars. It's been about content, it's about curation, and it's about communication. And what our learning teams have done at the back end is use that business enablers, build it into training agenda as well, which has gone beautifully. See, when you talk the business language into what training or any HR intervention you want to do, the sellability becomes higher. Now I bring on to your ROI format. I think when you start to see that people who are demonstrating higher learning scores or you are demonstrating better movement of careers, when you are able to demonstrate that part of the data, I think the case to invest into training becomes easy. It's not difficult. I think, in fact, companies do want to invest. It's a question of rightfully creating the metric of, yes, if I'm able to show that, okay, if this store of mine, because people are scoring high, because we did learning interventions, it is getting you better top line or better bottom line, depending on whatever the organization measures, or better customer scores. Or better repeat, or whatever. I mean, each organization or each business format may have their own. I think this is one area, the relatability of ROI is far higher than people actually who are at the back end. I struggle with it in my technology organization. Oof, I struggle in technology, I struggle in back end. This is actually far more easier. Retail is far more easier. Sales is far more easier. Actually, these roles are easier and it's very easy to go and convince the dollars in the organization because you can show the turnaround of the dollar very quickly. So to my mind, I think productivity, which I think retail industry has done a good job of bringing productivity matrices. I think the area which will be a challenge now is that how do you take it to the next level when you introduce technology? See, when you introduce technology, so it's a balance between you're bringing technology, you want to maintain the human touch. Somebody spoke about it with the customer internally, and how are you achieving the balance of what investment you're making in technology and with the human to get higher productivity for the business? Because the business is also becoming very competitive. The number of players in each market are, and especially the new age omni-channel digital businesses are far more disruptive than I think the good old classical models. So therefore, I think ROI basis is very easy.
Saurabh said tech, comfort, and people connect, driving productivity.
Yeah.
Would love to hear insights out of that data that even weren't present in the business. We'd love to understand a little bit about that.
I'll take the first go. Okay, so one point that we usually do to present productivity is it's very difficult to say that this productivity is because of this particular training program. But when we drive KPIs, for example, one of the business KPIs that the team drives at HOED, the training team drives, is the average basket size, ABS. And we consider that as a very, very strong KPI to be driven with business. So we monitor that on a quarterly basis. So if in a particular region, the average basket size is 1.9 and post a particular training or a product training, that quarter, it's gone up to 2 or 2.1, then there is some movement of the needle. And that is what we can show productivity through. There are other ways, for example, when we invest on an app, for example, right? There is read ratio, there is completion ratio, there is login ratio. The more the usage, the better the productivity. I can't say that because of the app he's selling better, but I can at least say that because he's using the app more, the ROI is much more for the company because I'm able to communicate faster and give the correct information instead of grapevines.
I would like to give a real life example. For us, one of the largest customers is Amazon. 100,000 users use our app and the usage patterns are 97%. They did very similar to what you asked for on our platform. They track KPIs on a weekly basis. These are time taken to deliver the package, the CSAT score the person gave, how many damaged packages did you deliver. Every time a KPI falls down, it auto-triggers a learning module to you. So for example, if the Ola car is driving, he cancels the car, a skilling module is given to him automatically. If the KPI doesn't go up, it auto-schedules a coaching session online on the app between the supervisor and the frontline employee. Now, what was very impressive, Amazon used this for 18 months, and they have an internal case study that they reduced damaged packages in India by 3.5%, which actually resulted into $6 million of saving for them. This case study spread like wildfire. So within less than 2 years, Amazon globally uses us, 26 countries. Because like, Suren, you said, in this workforce, it's very, very easy to quantify the ROI. So these are some of the great examples where you can actually take business metrics, link it back to the skilling metrics and show the productivity in the business outcomes.
Just to add on, just as Pooja said, until last year we were tracking UPT, which basket size is also called as UPT. And so as I told you earlier, that we have this evaluation process, which is a yearly report that goes, and it is a monthly review that we do. Now, from 2022 onwards, we thought that it is conversion that is even important. So UPT has taken because UPT also depends upon the offers that are running in the store, right? So conversion is something that a person can actually say that he or she has been trained well enough to build that rapport with the customer, to suggest right products and to close the sale, right? So conversion is something that also will improve your sales, which is directly related to net sales. And so those were the KPIs that we integrated into our system, and we do that review every month. And the best thing is we have the retail training team reporting into the operations retail, right? So that becomes even more easier, and you are connected to what is happening, in the business, right? And that having that changes implemented at a speed which is required becomes even more easier. So that was another aspect that I wanted to add on. Also, it is about how are we communicating these changes to the frontline teams, right? So when are we doing that? How often are we doing that? So these are small little things that will matter to them. And we call this report as STAR, which is strive towards achieving results. So they have that focus in their mind that it is about results that matters most. So we have this program called, we do this interviews for our succession planning. And we asked them, how do you like that process? And they said that it is definitely helping my team because we are much more aware about the fact that conversion, agar main nahi karunga, so it will impact my training scores. So those are some of the things.
Yeah, just wanted to add a little bit to what they said. While you have matrices, while you have measures which are important, to show whether you have been effective or not. But at the end of the day, you have to be very clear as to what objectives were set. And this is where, partnering makes a big difference. So if you're partnering with the business and if you're doing something for the business, then whatever the business is seeking in terms of an output, if you're able to deliver that, then it becomes extremely effective. Then the question of ROI does not come, right? So whenever we sit for budgeting, it's more important from a business point of view to say, what are they going to drive? And if you know the drivers of business, and if that is actually, calculated in terms of money as to what will it cost to drive that for a certain number of people, more or less, it is done. Yeah. So that's the bit that I wanted to add.
Coming back to ROI, our ROI is pretty public. We get our evaluations on Swiggy, Zomato, and Google rating. So we exactly have all of what is needed to change in public domain. But what we have done differently is that we take a very close look at it, and not only look at it and action it. So every week we have this review meetings on what is going wrong. How can we improve the experience? And from there, we've got our drivers, and that's how we get to know how our ROI is faring, because the increase in the ratings just helps us know where we stand. And are our people doing right on this restaurant level? So that's there, but certainly adding to what Sabha mentioned, when all of these ratings improve, but you're achieving 150% of your budget, then getting budget for training is absolutely not a problem. It's only when the business goes down, COVID hits, is when we have to look at a more jugadu way of doing training and all of the other things where, investing money in technology becomes a problem for, business, because keeping people on board is more important than investing in technology. But that's my 2 bits of contribution here.
Just very no, mine is not even a comment, just some food for thought to say it's interesting, we started the conversation on skills and all of that. And then when we come to ROI, we directly only talk about, which is, of course, I'm not trying to, lessen the importance of it. We're all here because we're all driving and we're partnering with business to drive results. So these are the easiest ones where we do look at ROI when we say X number of units. I wish we could say it of training leads to X number of sales or conversion. We're also dealing with the exact same thing. It used to be ABV is fine, UPT is fine. No, let's only focus on conversion. I think that's kind of the buzzword right now because footfall suddenly increased, but like in any Indian mall, the family goes to shop, but there's only one person who pays. So conversion is one. Just want to conclude. Just give me 1 second. So I think for me, ROI from a talent standpoint is not just the business metric. Going back to the old school thought of the Kirkpatrick model, this is level 4, and it can only be done on certain of these things. But for me, as a culture of the organization, from a mindset standpoint, for me, the catalyst is that line manager who's sitting in the middle. And for me, the ROI of those things, which I can't probably use too much data and technology, are probably the pulse surveys, or my engagement surveys that are constantly saying retention, succession planning, all of that kind of feeds into saying, am I driving the right cultural behaviors across the organization? Because at one point I could have a new joiner who comes in, but the manager is so pathetic, he does his business, but he's gone in 3 months. I am just investing more and more money in getting more people. So I think it's the larger aspect of one, which is very easy because that gets published on a daily basis. So my DSR comes out every day, so I know what's happening there. But I think there are larger matrices that we always need to keep an eye on the side to say, is there a manager that's off? Is there something that's happening? And to kind of keep a tab on the other ROIs, which are much more difficult to figure out because level 3 is, yeah, so. Yeah. So there's just so many, these are still business metrics are just easier because audits give you a clear black and white. But I think for me, ROI is also related to some of these softer aspects. So just a food for thought.
We'll take one question from you.
Yes.
Our panelist is very hungry to speak. So,
Thank you. Good evening. Since we have been talking about adapting to new L&D reality post-pandemic, and since morning we've been talking about a lot with respect to micro-learning and bite-sized learning, because the kind of the age group that we are working towards is not having the attention span that we want them to have. So now, and I would say that the attention span getting reduced has a lot more contribution from pandemic as well, because all of us were stuck at home with our phones, and we have been used to very short content. While that is true, and while we want to correct the short attention span with micro-learning, there is a type of learning which needs time to seep in, and especially in context of retail. So as we are moving forward, when we want to have a blended environment, how do we strike a balance between the content that needs time to seep in and the content that we want to create for better retention for the people who have a shorter span? Yeah.
You talked about the experiences, like the content, like a web series content, even if it's longer in format, people will still take the things. But anyone else you saw? Yeah, I'm not going to ever forget it.
Okay, I think fundamentally we should stop labeling certain generations. We always keep on saying that attention span is less attention. I don't think that has happened because RRR movie, since we are talking of RRR, is a 2-hour movie. I watch it. I watch a Bahubali, both the parts. I do that. OTT movies, I watch them. Yeah. So absolutely. So I think as far as the content is hook enough for me, relevant for me, interesting for me, attention span does not matter. That's one. Second, yes, it's a combination of both that one needs to do, because learning curve for everyone is going to be different. For us also is going to be different. I would also say, maybe I'm just trying to bridge it to the point earlier. The ROI there could be the development. We always keep on saying learning and development. That is a old school thought we feel. At a chopper stop, we call it development and learning, because our primary goal is to develop people through learning. So as far as you have the metrics of how many people internally have grown, that is the ROI you need to see. Because if somebody is growing in his own job, which means he is learning successfully, and that is translating to performance. So I think let's not differentiate that. You need both.
So one more thing, let's keep it content. I think people love content here. So the big theme is content is the king. Yes, Sabharatnam, then we can.
Yeah. So you mentioned about using the larger module versus a short module, etc. Right? And it's important to see how important it is for the organization to pick up that stuff which will be used by people. And if you put up the large module and if you take time to run it past, there are issues of people forgetting, and they don't recall that much. And then there is an issue of training and retraining again, that comes into play. So it's very important to administer a large module, but in a way in which retention can be prioritized from an organization's point of view. And that can happen only when you check as to what people have learned, how have they learned, and everything cannot be taught from our side. They also need to learn from each other, right? So it has to be experiential. When we do long drawn programs, it's also a matter of shifting the culture, right? So you expect a lot when you want to transform. I'll give you an example. We run this program called the Tanishq Way of Life. Okay, it's the TWL, and it's not a new program. It has been running for almost 30 years, 35 years now. But every time you see the program, you want to tweak, because I have made a visit and I have seen some change, and it has to be, And last year we saw a complete overhaul of the program. And it really psyched me off because the team made some 217 slides. I said, are you guys crazy? This is not going to work. They understand TWL. It's only that whatever new you want to impart, that is the only thing that needs to be done. You don't have to push the whole piece. When we started doing, people were sleeping in the class and things were not moving for us. So you have to be very mindful of how things are being imparted. What is important? If you can bring that, then you drive it through your micro learning. So whatever is important, continue to drive through small capsules because that helps people to retain, in a larger context. Yeah? Does that answer?
Thank you so much.
Sorry, I just wanted to give a very recent example. Nowadays, it's all about helping employees to develop a growth mindset. You cannot push learnings anymore. A very recent example, what we do with a certain set of high potentials is, and I have been told not to do it, but I still went ahead and did it. I have been giving them Harvard Business Review cases, okay, from HBR. Imagine, okay, FC level people, SM level people, and I had been told by business that this is crazy. Don't even think about it. Dekhenge bhi nahi khol ke. And at the end of that summary that I write, I ask them a question saying, read this and answer this question. I didn't receive answers for like the first month of development because they said, ma'am, samajh mein hi nahi aa raha hai. So I told them, dictionary lo, Google se pucho, Google mata ko sab pata hai, right? So I gave them a little hand-holding or whatever. The regional trainers helped them. After 2 to 3 months, you will not believe these guys used to wait for my weekly HBRs. And the level of the vocabulary that they improved on, the level of English that they started speaking was commendable. And that growth mindset was all that was missing. I have enough reasons why I don't want to read an HBR. But I need that one reason why I should. Thank you.
Very, very good discussion. I think I'm taking back 4 things that I've written down. The first thing is, digitization was always important. I think, Priya, you were mentioning that. COVID fast-tracked that. And post-COVID, that has stayed with us. So that focus has not gone away. I'm taking the entire piece of agility. I think that's another piece that has stayed back with us, even in the post-pandemic world. That's the first point I'm taking away from this discussion. The second one is the whole need for new kinds of skills, specifically digital skills. And I'm not able to get the exact word you said, but it was around tech comfort and people connect. I don't know what you said. So that's the second thing I'm taking back is that's become extremely important. And one thing that we all spoke a lot about is content is the king. And there the important part is not about how long or how short it is. It's not about anything, but it's about experience and the engagement of the content. The format doesn't matter, but if it's engaging, people will consume it. That's the third thing. And the fourth thing is the ROI is important, but is easier to track because business is involved in the entire process of L&D strategy. So those are the 4 things I'm taking. Thank you so much, panelists. Love the discussion.
I have a question for Kuljit.
Now you are putting me on the spot. I hope, yeah, please.
No. It's not a question to Kuljit per se, but I'm just asking for help. And this is one point which I'm also putting forward this panel. I'm also a part of the sustainability piece now. ESG is coming on. And the more deeper I get into it, one of the things that COVID has pushed us is to relook at inclusivity when we are looking at people to be included. Now I'm struggling with the content that is ready for people with special abilities. If there is anything out there, please would request you to do that, because we need to include them. The kind of examples, the kind of methodology for them has to completely change. So if
I'm not the subject matter. I'm very, very honest. But I think there are.
I think the lemon tree does an extensive.
yes, yes.
So I can connect. I help you connect with someone.
Yeah, I have spoken to Aradhana Lal. We had her in Shoppers Stop just about 2 weeks back. But thank you so much. I just wanted to put this point for all the fraternity out here. Look out for them. The sooner we start, we will actually show inclusivity in true sense. Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.